Well, hello. Welcome back to another exciting edition of Coffee with Stephen. So this week's blog is entitled Cicero. Um, Back a number of lifetimes ago, when I was in college, I studied political philosophy, and one of the political philosophers that we studied was Marcus Cicero. Um, Not a well-known political philosopher outside of those of us that are getting a little kind of wonky about this stuff. Pardon me. Most people obviously have heard of Aristotle and Socrates and Euripides. Um, Cicero doesn't seem to have the same name power that others did, although I think Cicero is probably one of the most important, certainly from the standpoint of the concept of political formation. In any event, Sandy and I had traveled back to West Point a couple of weekends ago, and on the flight back, I was reading selected political discourses of Cicero. And, I remember studying him in college. It was always from the standpoint of sort of how to formulate a body politic. But as I was reading him this time, I started noticing certain things that he was saying that were very, very specific to self-defense. And, it's funny, I had just never noticed that before. And some of the things that he said were actually quite brilliant. Probably the most important thing was that the bearing of arms in and of itself, by definition, cannot be a bad thing. The focus always has to be on the intent of the individual to commit an act of violence. The simple presence of a weapon is not necessarily indicative of intent. And that got me thinking about a lot of our laws. A lot of the laws that we have effectively try to get rid of the intent requirement. It's very difficult for a judicial system to prove intent. From a prosecutorial standpoint, trying to convince a jury of what somebody was thinking is very, very difficult. So how do we make it easier for the state to get a conviction? Well, simply remove that intent requirement at all. The simple presence of a simple act of being in the presence of a weapon is enough to create an impugned intent. We simply make the possession illegal rather than the illegal use of the product. I think that Cicero was way ahead of his time. And I think that to a large extent, one of the major disconnects that we have in our Second Amendment jurisprudence is this disconnect. In any event, I hope you enjoy the blog. As always, you can reach out to me at stephen@artemishq.com. As always, I want you to be training constantly, consistently, repetitively, and with purpose. And above all else, stay safe.